So does Gran Turismo 7 go back to the roots of what made Gran Turismo so iconic and successful in the first place, all the way back into PlayStation 1 days? And also, what kind of game is it for the average player? Is it accessible for just about anyone? And what about the car knowledge and everything kind of around that in the game? How much car information is there beyond just kind of your typical racing game? It's actually quite extensive. We're going to talk about that here in this video. This is going to be kind of my early, it's not a review, but I guess you could say an early first impressions, first thoughts, which I guess is kind of like an early review, but it's not my full review, if you will. I've played the game for about a few hours. I got the game early from PlayStation Canada, so just full transparency. That said, obviously I'm not required to say just good things. If I had critiques, or if I do have any critiques to say, I will definitely be 100% honest and transparent about them. I'm not the kind of person that's just going to say nice things because I got something for free. If you've been around the channel long enough and you know me well enough, you'll know that about me, that I guess you could say the word is I pride myself in being honest and transparent with you guys as much as possible. Now keep in mind, obviously, this is my opinion and my experience personally. Like I've mentioned in every other kind of video, these things are kind of subjective, right? One person may hate a game, another person may love a game, and another person may be somewhere in the middle. So do keep that in mind, you know, as we go through this. Is just my experience, my thoughts. So if you guys do want to hear what I think, then stick around. If you do enjoy this video though, be sure to leave a like. Definitely helps out the channel. If you guys are new around here, be sure to subscribe. We do a variety of gaming content. We talk about the games and play the games, from gaming reviews, gaming news, gameplays, walkthroughs, everything else in between. It's a good time here on the channel. So Gran Turismo 7, the interesting thing about this game is from day one of the trailer, the reveal trailer, I had this odd, I guess, vibe and feeling about the game, in the sense that I thought it was going to feel like, it kind of felt like it was going back to the roots. I don't know why I thought that just from the reveal trailer, to be quite honest, because we didn't really get that much information from the reveal trailer, but there was just something that I guess maybe it was a feeling, you know, you could call it, and I ended up being, in my opinion, right, obviously. So one thing I will say is I didn't play Gran Turismo Sport, but I did grow up playing the original games way back in the day, PS1, PS2. I had a lot of fun with them. I put so much time into Gran Turismo 1, for example. So from a nostalgic perspective and where the game came from, I have that perspective, even if there's a couple games that I missed kind of throughout the years, right? I did play a little bit of the first one that was on PS3. I think it was either, I want to say it might have been 4 or 5, if I remember correctly. There was a couple ones I missed. Now I played a lot of 1, I played a lot of 2, I dabbled in 3 on the PS2, I believe it was, or maybe it was 4. Again, my memory's not serving me the greatest right now. You know, there's a lot of years between then and now. The 25 years of Gran Turismo. They're celebrating their 25th anniversary with Gran Turismo 7. But what I will say about that is that my experience so far with Gran Turismo 7, it makes me feel like I did when I was a kid playing on my PlayStation 1 on Gran Turismo 1. I had a lot of fun with those, and one of the things I particularly really loved and enjoyed about those games is just the way that the licenses were structured. Now, there was some other games, I think it was the one actually on PS3 that I played, that it didn't really feel the same for me. I don't know what it was, but the licenses in this game are exactly how I remember them from Gran Turismo 1. So I'm going to be comparing a lot to the old nostalgic days. That's because that's my best kind of comparison, and that's what I remember the most, is that nostalgic factor, right? So if you guys played them back in the days, maybe you weren't into, you know, the games in the middle, then I think this game you will be into. Obviously the licensing are split up into 5 sections. You have your National B, National A, International B, International A, and then finally your Super license. And they get harder and harder, teaching you the fundamentals of proper racing, you know, from, you know, taking corners properly, you know, how to either let go of the gas at the right time or when to actually brake and how much to brake, and, you know, the timing of your braking and all these different things. And if you do go for the gold for each of these kind of licenses, they're split up into 10 sections. So for your National B, for example, you have B1, B2, B3, all the way up to B10. And then again, you know, similar things with the other licenses as well, up to 10. And there's bronze, silver, and gold, and there's different kinds of times you got to basically accomplish in order to determine whether you get all gold, all bronze, silver, whatever. Now, there are some pretty cool rewards as well if you do get the all gold. I have done that at the time of recording this. In my B license, you will get rewards such as cars and different things like that. Maybe, you know, credits bonuses, which is basically the money of the game. If you're not familiar with Gran Turismo, it's a racing game, obviously, but it's the most realistic racing simulator ever made. And Gran Turismo 7 is no exception to that. Gran Turismo 7 is probably the peak, the prime example of the perfect racing simulator, in my opinion. Now, I'm not a professional racer, right? I'm a casual gamer, or a casual racer in games, rather. A hardcore gamer, but a casual racer. And so I can't give you, obviously, the nuances. I'm not going to go into that, but I'm talking from a casual perspective. And I know there's a lot of people out there wondering, well, I don't know if this is the game for me, because it is more of a realistic racing simulator. I'll say, as someone who's not a hardcore racing, I guess racer, a game, video game racer, I really love this game. Now, it is very realistic. If you are familiar with how certain cars handle, if you are familiar with, different tracks, and then you'll understand how to kind of race better, right? How to handle these tracks if you're familiar with them. Maybe you watch, racing on TV or whatever. Maybe you've actually raced on these tracks yourselves or whatever, That said, it's obviously also very welcoming to new players, casual players as well. It's very easy to understand. The game teaches you from the start exactly, the ins and outs, right? You'll be taken through the menus, you'll be taken through the gameplay, the mechanics, all that. Speaking of gameplay, you can actually choose whether if you want to use the D-pad, kind of like in the old days, right? PS1 didn't have the joysticks, or you can use the joystick, or even gyro if you want to just move your controller kind of like that, to kind of mimic a steering wheel. You could do that as well, which is really cool. And of course, if you do have a steering wheel that's compatible, there are many different ones that are compatible with the game. All that to say, there's a variety of different ways that you can play in the game. There's also these different kinds of assists you can kind of customize, such as even braking assists. So anything that kind of helps you out, you can kind of tweak that to your liking. Obviously, if you have stuff like brake assists on, you're not going to get the best lap times, obviously, right? So that's something that maybe you can use at first as training wheels, and you take off when you get a little bit more accustomed and you get kind of used to it. You can also set the difficulty of the racing either from easy, normal, or expert as well. So there's a variety of different settings that does make it more accessible to a variety of different players, whether you're maybe not the greatest at racing games, or maybe you are very good at racing games and you want a little bit of a higher challenge. And it is also worth noting that dumbing down or increasing your difficulty is not going to affect the credits that you earn. So they obviously wanted to make sure that everybody's going to have a similar experience. So if you're not as good at racing games and you have to go on easy, well, they didn't want you to make it, they didn't want to make it so you don't earn as many credits as someone else, for example, right? So all that to say, some great options. And if you are on the PS5, by the way, I will say the adaptive triggers are really a really nice touch. It's not too much, but you can feel the tension, right, when you accelerate, when you brake. Also, the haptic feedbacks, which are really, really cool. So depending on how the friction is kind of affecting your car, if there's more friction on, let's say, the right side of the car, you're going to feel it more in the right side of your controller. Really, really cool how that's kind of distributed and how that feels. Additionally, of course, there's the weather dynamics, right? For example, if it's raining, it's going to affect your racing, right? The racing itself is very realistic. Like I said, it's a very realistic racing simulator. And so the cars are going to handle like the cars that you would expect, right? The tracks, they're going to race like the real tracks in real life. So again, if you've ever raced on any of these tracks, you're going to be familiar with it. Now, I'm not going to go too much more into the gameplay side of things because I think the gameplay kind of speaks for itself. It feels really good. It feels really tight, really smooth. There's a lot of flexibility, right? So there's a lot of learning that can be done. Even if you get first place on a track, you can get better laps, right? You can learn those tiny little subtle things. And that's where the licensing also helps, by the way, is to learn those little kind of tiny increments that you got to change, right? Those little changes, little tiny adjustments you have to make that can give you just even a few milliseconds that in your license, for example, can be the factor of either a bronze, silver, or gold, or in a race, it could be the difference of actually getting first place or not, or, beating a previous record in a lap time. Really cool stuff. So there's a lot of room for growth in this game. It's not just kind of like a standard racing game. There's a lot of improvement that you can kind of make. Even if you're really good at from the gate, you can get much better. And that's what's really, really interesting and cool, and I think even unique about this game specifically. Then of course you have different things like the tuning shop, right? So the tuning shop, I was worried maybe I wouldn't completely understand it, and I'll be honest, I don't. But if you click on anything in the tuning shop, it actually actually tells you how it's going to affect your car. And the interesting thing about the tuning shop is there's actually different categories from sports, club sports, semi-racing, racing, and extreme. And these ones will unlock the more your car collection level goes up. So that's another aspect of this game, is that there is a collector level. So the more cars that you have in your collection, the higher your level, and the higher your level, the more access to other kinds of cars you can purchase, other kinds of upgrades for your cars that you can purchase, and there's just a wide variety of things. So it's very interesting because the actual, tuning shop, again, it's something that you can go more in depth with, or you can kind of just, at face value, if you're someone that doesn't know a lot about the technicalities of what goes into building a car, that's fine. It's very easy to understand for the normal person as well. And there's kind of like an overall rating system on your car called PP, and that rating system determines, I guess the quality, if you will, of the car and the build, and just the performance rather. It's called performance points. That's why it's the 2-letter P's, PP, performance points, right? So the higher your performance points, the more, effective and efficient your car is going to be, racing and whatnot. And of course, you got so many different things you can upgrade, from your tires, and depending on the kind of tires you change, you're really going to feel the effects in your car. So if you upgrade to, tires that have more traction, you're going to notice it for sure, 100%. Now, what's interesting is that you can actually go into your garage and you can actually fine tune your cars individually. You can kind of tweak them. And this is something that I think is great for someone who knows a little bit more about, how to tune your car. But you just basically go to car settings, and there's a wide variety of stuff. I mean, it is absolutely insane. I'm not going to even pretend that I even start to begin to understand the basics of it. I would like to at some point, but you got everything from being able to adjust your muffler, your air cleaner, your anti-lag system, your intercooler, your supercharger, everything, man. Your ECU, your downforce, your body height adjustment, your anti-roll bar. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Your initial torque, your differential. There's so many different things in your transmission. If you know how to build a car in real life properly, you can really tweak this car to perform the way you specifically want to. But again, you don't need to do this if you're more of a casual person who doesn't understand these details. That's okay. You don't really need to kind of go into that, but that option is there if you do want to get into the nitty gritty and the kind of nuances of it all, if you will, and whatnot. Now, I will say, yes, the game it has 2 different quality modes, right? It has performance mode, which is going to prioritize basically the frame rate, which you're going to want when you're racing. But there's also a ray tracing mode, and that mode is more for if you want to do a showcase, right? If you want to check out, footage, or if you want to check out, kind of take pictures and things like that, photo mode, that's where that's kind of plays into. And I will say that, those kind of angles and shots gets very realistic, and it almost blurs the line between real world and not. Some of the, the cars I've seen, some of the shots I've seen, I wasn't even really sure for a minute. Was this like a real life, footage that they kind of injected in here? And then I realized, wait, no, it's not. This is all like just, animated, CGI, whatever. This is the game itself. And it's pretty phenomenal how realistic certain parts of the game gets. Now, when you're actually racing, the game looks great. The lighting looks great. The environments look beautiful. Everything looks very, very nice and very sharp, even when you're prioritizing frame rate. You don't need to have ray tracing on when you're racing, of course. You don't really need to see reflections when you're racing. You're just focusing on zooming past all of your opponents and getting to the finish line first. So that's fine there. And then I will say, there's a couple other things I do want to kind of touch on. Of course, you have, like I said, your tracks, you got your world circuits, right? You got all these different tracks and some very famous tracks at that. So if you're very familiar with these locations, then they're going to make a lot of sense. At the time of recording this, like I said, I'm early in the game. I only have a few different locations unlocked, but there's a variety of different tracks, from the Americas having 10 different locations, again, at the time of recording this, Europe having 15, and Asia Oceanic having 9. That's, again, at the time of recording this, that's what I have unlocked. I don't know, how much there is beyond that. There's like over 400 cars at launch. I will say that the car selection is unreal. There's, of course, year your used cars. So there's a used car dealership that you can go to, and this is where you can actually find a bunch of different kind of cars that might be a little bit cheaper and in your budget, and you can see all kinds of different used vehicles that you might want to pick up, and then you might want to just go ahead and tune them and kind of customize them to your liking. That said, a little bit later in the game, maybe like 2, 3, 4 hours into the game, depending how long it takes you, you'll unlock this place called Brand Central. What's really interesting about Brand Central is you can go in here, and it's divided into the 3 categories just mentioned: America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. And you can see the different companies, right? So like Ford and Chevrolet and Dodge for the Americas, for example. Europe, obviously having like Jaguar and Volkswagen and different companies like that. And you can go into these places and you can view some really nice cars. This is where you're going to find your really kind of top of the line cars. Most of these places have showrooms, and they also have something called museums. Not every car brand has a museum, but the majority of the big ones do. And so you have obviously your Corvettes and your Camaros, and you have, of course, your Shelbys and everything else in between, your Lambos. And this is where you're going to find like the top of the line cars that are going to cost you a pretty penny. Some of them are actually a little bit cheaper, like $35,000 for a cheaper Camaro SS16. But then for some of the more expensive cars like the Corvette C7 GR3, that's going to cost you nearly $500,000. And some of the cars I've seen go up to, multiple million credits. What's interesting beyond that, and I'm going to go a little bit more into this in a different video, kind of showcasing it a little bit more, is that, like I said, a lot of these car dealerships have museums. And if you go into these museums, it's packed with knowledge. Like, you have a timeline, you can see exactly when they were made, what their first cars were, their different logos. You can see their whole timeline from the early 1912s all the way into the late kind of, modern era. I mean, it goes year by year. And if you open up these kind of sections, you can see little kind of, information packets, if you will, regarding each of these timelines and all these different cars. And it's really cool because for the car enthusiast, there's so much to learn about these manufacturers and about these cars just from a history perspective. There's so much history packed in this, and that's actually something that you'll even experience the minute you boot up the game. You'll have kind of like a little bit of a introduction and a little bit of a tutorial to do at the beginning, and then you're going to get launched into an opening cinematic. And the cinematic really gives you it looks like you're watching practically a vehicle, a motor, an automotive documentary, if you will. It's really, really cool and really interesting, and I absolutely love it. It's just absolutely fantastic. So there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of things to learn about cars, whether it's, again, the history of the cars or just how they work, how to, better kind of tweak a car, how to build a car, how to change certain parts and different things like that. I mean, it's crazy. To me, it's more than just a game. It's an educational tool, quite frankly. There's so much education packed into this game on top of it being a game. It's really, really fantastic. And again, even if you're not super knowledgeable about cars, like I said, just learning the history about some of these cars is really, really, really fantastic. It's really fun and it's really cool. I guess a couple of closing thoughts is that there's some other things that I have yet to unlock in the game. Like I said, I'm only a few hours in, but there's this one section called the cafe, and you can go there and you can check out your trophies and your collection. There's things called menu books. Now, menu books is basically like, I guess it's like a mission, like a quest, right? So for example, one of the ones I am currently on is to acquire a collection of Japanese front-wheel drive sports cars, right? So Japanese FF sports cars, there's 3 different ones. You can actually check out, hints on how to acquire them. So you can either typically usually buy them, or there's, they're given as free gifts for winning certain circuits and certain races. So those are really interesting things. And then actually when you complete one of these things they're called menus, but again, you can refer to them as quests, for example. When you complete one, you'll have a little bit of a kind of, I guess, a little history lesson, kind of a short history lesson, showcasing these cars that you just earned. So for example, these 3, once you complete them, you're going to have a little bit of a cinematic and a little bit of a history lesson on Japanese FF sports cars, or it could be the European compact cars. And it's just really interesting. So again, there's a lot of cool things in this game, and there's just a lot to it. And of course, like I said, you have your trophies and different things like that. So there's a lot to work towards, from your license to your car collection, right? Obviously, not just collecting cars, but increasing your car collection level, to getting, souping up whatever cars you already own, purchasing, better cars, winning races, progressing through that, becoming a better racer and a more well-known racer, earning more credits so you can buy the next car. There's a lot to work towards. And I think that's at the basis what makes a game kind of enjoyable, is when you have something to kind of grind towards. That's, at least for me, something that I really enjoy. So there's a lot of things that this game gives you to work towards. So I think we'll leave it at that. Well, I guess the final thing I will say is that there is also a showcase. You can customize your profile. You can create your own showcase, whether it's replays or pictures. You can view other people's as well. And that's kind of a whole little social hub that's also added to the game that's really, really nice. Again, there's a bunch of different things that are in here that makes this game very unique in and of itself. And there's still a few other sections of the hub that I've yet to unlock at the time of recording this. There's a few buildings that you can see within the hub that don't have icons above them yet, and those are unlocked as you progress through the game. So again, first thoughts, first impressions, this is practically, I guess you could say, a review. I really like this game. For any kind of car enthusiast or racing enthusiast, whether you're casual or veteran, expert, whatever, I think this is a really fun game. If you're into cars, like I said, there's so much that you can unpack here, from actually gameplay to history to everything else in between, knowledge, educational kind of side of things. It's really impressive. And I mean, if I had to rate the game just from the gate, I would probably give it a pretty high rating, to be honest with you, probably in the 9s, because it's a very fantastic game in my opinion. It's a lot of fun. So again, maybe it's not the kind of game for everyone, not everybody's style or genre, and that's completely fine. But if you are into racing and if you are into cars, I think you will actually enjoy this game quite a bit. So that's kind of, I guess you can call it an early review, preview, first impressions, first thoughts, whatever you want to call it, of Gran Turismo 7. Again, I'm only a few hours into the game, but I wanted to share kind of my first initial thoughts and kind of dissect, what this game is really about. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you guys did, leave it a like, subscribe for more. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section below. I'll do my best to answer them. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon in another one. Let me know if you guys plan to pick up Gran Turismo 7, and when you do, let me know your own personal thoughts here in the comment section. And until the next one, game on, and thanks for watching.